Hey guys, welcome back to the Kampai Sugai podcast. Let me tell you guys, it's been good. It's been a good summer. I'm telling you, I've been enjoying this summer. Things have been really good. Things have been really good for me. And today is a super great day. I have someone who is someone you probably know. I mean, if you watch videos about Mike Miske, the Mike Miske cases, you probably know who this guy is. But I'll just give a little bit of a background. This guy was a former HPD officer, and he's also a content creator. Actually, he's also former karate expert. He was ranked number 1 in Michigan, and he is also a breakdancer. I don't know if you guys ever seen some of his old stuff, but he's also a breakdancer as well. Anyway, please give a round of applause to Mr. Doug Korenic.
Ooh, take it easy. Take it easy. I'm not a breakdancer anymore. I'm 41 years old, and no more karate. It's been the joints don't work the same.
Well, for karate, you've been you were ranked number 1. You did a lot of competitions. It was mostly kumite you were known for.
Yeah, and in kata they had there would be tournaments for the weekend, and I do weapons kata, and then there'd be forms and fighting. Yeah. But then, I was young. So when my parents split up when I was real young, my mom couldn't afford it anymore. And so I started training with alternative styles. I wasn't competing anymore because we couldn't travel. So I got into like arnis and, or I don't know, in Hawaii, I guess,
Eskrima.
Kali or Eskrima, they say more often. And then some Muay Thai and things like that. But that was just for, because I love the martial arts, but I never competed in any of those forms. Why you did martial arts?
I do Kali Eskrima right now, so I've been training.
Oh, nice.
So it's nice. I used to do karate back then when I was a kid. I think if you grew up as a kid in Hawaii, you've always done karate or some kind of, maybe judo in high school. So
where do you do Kali?
So So I have a teacher named Sifu Nate. He's a content creator. He kind of does more Jeet Kune Do, which I've also learned Jeet Kune Do from him. And he taught me pretty heavily, but then he moved to Japan. So now I'm trying to get back into a school. But I just trained with some of my buddies that
good for you.
Also trained with me. So
it's fun,
fun. It's very fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Fun. And it's great, like, sharing it with others. I don't want to say teaching, because like sharing it, it just feels good, because like I love Eskrima, and I love showing others a new style, and being able to learn from other people's styles as well has been really rewarding. So I've been just learning more about Eskrima, even aside from what my teacher taught me. So
that's great.
Yeah,
if we're ever in town, we should get together.
Yes,
we'll throw some sticks around.
Yes, I definitely throw some sticks around. Yeah, and then you've been training in JiuJitsu as well.
I was. I haven't. I mean, COVID. You know how COVID was, man. It forced everybody into like a different routine, and so I had people that were doing stuff in their, in their upstairs or in their basement. You know what I mean? And so I had friends I could train with, and but then I broke a rib. And dude, I'm telling you, when you think you're a grown man until you break a rib and you realize how soft you are. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't lay on my left side. I couldn't lay on my right side. It was like 6 weeks. I couldn't really sleep. And then it takes a long time to heal. And I was wrestling with a much younger, much bigger dude. I had no business rolling with
being in there.
And he was just, it is what it is. So, but I love martial arts. I do. But 41 years old, man, things start to change. The joints, they're less forgiving. And I got babies now and kids in school, and I've been coaching a lot. So I haven't had time to do that. It's probably been a year since I've trained any martial arts.
Yeah, you have to work out differently, especially when you get older. Because for me, the same way, when I go to the gym, it's a different regiment that I have to do. So like I do a little bit more cardio now. I try to and then I do some, a lot of strength training as well, but I still do more cardio just to keep my heart rate going. And
yeah, for sure.
and things moving, because I think if I don't work out certain joints, especially in my legs, I work out a lot more legs now. Then my body starts to like stiffen up, maybe, you know.
So you how often you train martial arts?
Well, martial arts wise, that's a good question. I'd say maybe twice a week. I don't do it
Wow.
as often as
And
I
how old are you?
30.
30. Wow. Twice a week when you're 30. That's a good pace.
Yeah. I was thinking, so I injured my right leg. A lot of people know my story, but I broke my right leg in 2017. So before that, I wanted to go, to go into kickboxing and jujitsu, but I broke my leg in 2017, and I was
Oof.
sidelined, so I wasn't able to. If you ever watch like UFC, if you ever see the Anderson Silva or Weidman,
No, it was
like
that bad.
it was that bad.
No.
And yeah, my leg shattered, like my tibia and my fibula, they
Tibia
shattered.
and fibia.
Yeah.
Oh,
And my leg folded, and I knew it folded because I felt it.
oh no.
And but it felt like a sprain, but I knew I broke something. And I looked at it, and I was holding my leg up, and I could see my leg dangling, and I said, I'm screwed.
How
But
long it take for you to recover?
it took me a year. So I had a surgical rod in my leg, and once I after that year, I took out my surgical rod, and then I was able to get into podcasting, and
Wow. So you
yeah,
did this, you started the podcast after your injury.
right after my
Okay.
injury.
So
Yeah,
it's been about 2 years, something like that.
it's been since 2018. So
Oh, wow.
I had a different name for the podcast before 2021, but I because I took a break between August 2020 and then December 2021.
Right.
But yeah, I did another podcast back in 2018, so October 2018 to August 2020. So right after
So right
COVID
about the
started.
same time I started. I think my first
Mm.
video dropped May of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, around the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get, and then getting into your videos, so you called it "Leaving the Dream," which is
Yeah.
it's an interesting title because you came to Hawaii. You guys were very excited back in 2007. You were just talking about
Right.
it
Right.
in 2007. You and your wife, and you guys came here because of an appointment that your wife was going into because she
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
working at
We
Schwab at
wanted
the
to
time.
travel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We
was
want to get
Hawaii
some
your
traveling done.
was Hawaii your first choice, or
No.
was it?
Well, no, because the first assignment we took was Fairbanks, Alaska. So we lived in Alaska for
Hmm.
like 6 months, almost 6 months, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less. Doing the same thing, travel nursing at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. And then,
Hmm.
we just wanted to travel. We knew we wanted to have kids. So we were like, let's get some traveling out the way before we have babies. It's going to be a
Hmm.
lot harder. So went to Alaska for a few months. I owned an asphalt company. So we did like seasonal work in the mainland, especially in the Northeast. Like technically I live in the Midwest, but it's the east side of the
Hmm.
country. I don't know why they call it Midwest, but it gets cold in the winters. So
Hmm.
you cannot there's no landscaping. There's no, road work in the winter because everything's frozen and everything will
Hmm.
break down. So
Hmm.
I usually would have winters off. I would do like snow removal in the winter, and then I would do paving asphalt in the summers.
Hmm.
So I came back. We went in the winter to Fairbanks and then came back for the summer. I ran my business, make my money for the year essentially. And then we took another assignment in the winter. And since I
Hmm.
picked the first opportunity we had was Alaska. And it just seems like a crazy place to go. So we were like, let's
Right.
do it. We'll never have another excuse, to do something
Hmm.
like this. They gave us a car, they gave us a house. We could bring our dog. And it was just us two. So we were dead broke when we first got there because we spent all our money on flights. They reimburse you, but it takes like 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something.
Oh wow.
So we
Okay.
spent all our money. We're a young couple, you know what I mean? We just got married.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I had friends in Michigan ordering me. I mean, this is before Uber Eats, you know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
2008. I had friends calling pizza places for me in Fairbanks to order me food because we still had like 2 or 3 days till we got our paycheck from them, the reimbursement check.
Hmm.
And we were just like, oh, just scraping by for the first couple of weeks. but it was a really awesome experience. And then we loved it so much, and we realized we had some time. We weren't ready for kids yet, so we're like, let's do another one. And so my wife said, can we do Hawaii? So we had turned down the first few offers were for Kauai, in Kapaa.
Oh, okay,
and it just was going to be too, like, at first I didn't want Hawaii. I thought it was going to be all tourists. I wanted to have, like, just a different experience, not like a vacation. So we turned down a couple, and then finally we realized, like, there wasn't many opportunities to go to much cooler places. We had like Oregon and a couple other places like that, and it just really wasn't interesting to me. So finally we got one in Honolulu for Straub, and so she took it. And then, that was the best thing we ever did, because we fell in love with Hawaii, and, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. And you were there for that 6-month assignment, and then you guys went back to Michigan.
Yeah, went back to Michigan, and we knew we wanted to go back, but we weren't really sure. I mean, all our family's in Michigan, and you know how it is, man, with family. It's like, they're super important. But when you're young, you have a little bit more latitude. You're like, I'm going to go make our way. Yeah. And, so took a couple years, but then my good friend, called me up one day and said, hey, HPD is hiring. And I told him to keep an eye out for good jobs, because I was, I'd think about it. So he's like, you got till midnight. And so I went and midnight Hawaii time. So, I had like till 6 a.m. or whatever it was. Yeah. So I went ahead and filled out the application. And then a month later, they told me to fly out, and I flew out like 5 times over the next 5 months of the processing, background checks, polygraphs, psych exams.
Did they reimburse your flights back and forth, or
no way?
Pay out of pocket. Oh,
had to pay out of pocket. So we spent our savings. So
that's a big investment.
It was a big risk, man. So that's why it felt divine. It felt like everything just kind of worked out. I had no business, we spent more money than we should have. We risked a lot. And, I never wanted to be a cop. I never thought about that growing up. I think that ended up working for me. I think we need more policemen that don't want to be policemen. Because, there was no image involved. Like, it wasn't like, I want to, you know what I mean? At least it worked for me.
No pride involved with that. Yeah.
Right.
And you talk about that on your podcast too, that you that wasn't your first idea to be a cop in the first place, coming to Hawaii. But so what made you in the end say, like, okay, fine, let's go the cop route for, let's go HPD?
Well, really, it was the job. It was just the opportunity. It was the only job opportunity I had. I had a backup plan. I was going to go work for a construction company called Auli'i Construction, and they're on the west side. And it was friends that I knew from the church. They said that, hey, if it doesn't work out HPD, because you know how HPD is. At HPD, if you don't make it, if you get cut 3 weeks in, like, that's it.
Yeah.
So the good part about Hawaii is that, and HPD, is that they pay you a salary throughout academy, and not everybody does that. Places like small, it's weird explaining to people in Hawaii, because it's so different how it's set up. In Hawaii, you got sheriffs, right? Which are basically airport and some freeways, some state highways.
Yeah, some freeways.
And then they get places like, some harbors, like in Kaka'ako, things like that. The prison. But other than that, it's HPD. It's the Honolulu Police Department. So it's essentially a municipal county, police department. There's really no state cops, except for DLNR would be technically considered state. But like everywhere else in the mainland U.S., it's like there's the state police, stadies they call them. They're like the big dogs.
Yeah,
they have all the jurisdiction in the state, and then get county sheriffs, and
then DLNR.
Well, no, I mean then city cops.
Oh, city cop. Okay.
So like let's say I live in one city, it's only 2 miles wide by 2 miles wide,
Mhm.
right? Picture like Kuli'o, if it was, so you would just have Kuli'o police officers.
Mhm.
Then you would have Kahala police officers. And they're not a part of the same department. They don't even work for the same, like it's a completely different company.
Okay.
So
A separate division then. Yeah.
not even division. A completely separate.
So it's an entity. It's just a
Yes.
different. Wow. That's weird. Huh.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's how it is in most of the country. If there's incorporated cities that have police departments, there might be 2 police officers for that city, and they're employed by that city.
Mm.
And then, so it's not really like how it is in Hawaii. And that's weird for me because I've never been a cop anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even weird talking to police officers here when they find out I was a policeman. It's like, it's hard to even relate unless you talk to a big city cop, because Honolulu is like 17th largest police department in the country.
Mm-hmm.
At least when I was there, it was. So, I mean, it's up there. It's bigger than the Detroit Police Department.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So think about it like that. Like Honolulu is a big police department. Now it's technically the whole island. Technically, it should be the Oahu Police Department because that's really what it is. But it's Honolulu County, right? So the island of Oahu.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird how that works. And they got, police stations, 8 districts.
Mm-hmm.
So it works like districts. Imagine if all those districts wrote their own paychecks to their own people. It didn't come from city county, or it didn't come from the county of Honolulu. It just came from their city, and then you didn't know the other cops. Like you never worked with them. You got your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's typically how it is over here.
Oh,
so I didn't really know. I just, and in those places you got to go to college. So imagine going Leeward Community College to get a police officer degree, and then you take here they call it MCOLS, which is like your Michigan certification of police.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Then you're a certified police officer in Michigan. So then you can go to these departments. There's 1,000 of them.
Okay.
Right. Just like I said, imagine each little city has a police department, and you put in your application with them, and and they say, "Where's your certificate?" You show it to them, and then you got other people bidding for that job, but you paid for school. You paid for, your schooling,
education, right? To get the degree,
to get a degree. It's like getting any other job, really. Whereas in Honolulu, they give you a conditional offer of employment, and they pay you a full salary. When I went, it was like $42,000 a year to go there, and it's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 7 months or 6 months, whatever. I had Apec, so it was like 7 months.
Right.
So Honolulu's different. Like and major cities do that. So like LAPD, NYPD, Chicago PD,
they'll pay the salary.
Will pay the salary. It's the same thing because they want you to be trained for their laws, for their ways, because they have a lot more liability. They have a lot more people to deal with. So you getting in trouble is going to cost them a lot more. So you got to know their laws. Whereas, if you work for one of the major police departments, you can go to any other police department really in the country and get hired. Like lateral transfer, and plenty of guys do it from Hawaii. They will go Hawaii. Like big, or even from like HPD, they'll go Big Island, they'll go Maui, and then they'll go. A lot of guys go California. Sunnyvale is a big one. A lot of guys go Vegas, Portland. Like they will recruit our officers that are graduates because they were trained in Honolulu. They spend 100,000. Yeah. So like Honolulu will spend like 100 G's on you between your equipment and, all the stuff they got to do for you. And then they just cherry pick them and take them. You know what I mean? It's kind of smart when you think about it.
Yeah.
They pay a lot of money.
So, I mean, basically it's like if you're HPD, you're kind of like a high ranking or like I don't want to say like a blue collar kind of officer, but like you're seen as someone more prestige at least.
I wouldn't say prestige, but the training is very good at the Honolulu Police Department, and they spend a lot of money and a lot of time teaching you a lot of law. You're essentially like a lawyer on the street. I mean, you didn't go to school as long as a lawyer did, so you don't have case law for civil stuff and for,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. But
Business law, yeah, whatever.
you understand criminal law.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to understand case law and you have to understand all that stuff for Honolulu. And which, because of that, you're going to need to know Supreme Court, precedents and things like that. So it's really crazy. Like Honolulu police officers can't do as much as other police officers in the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you watch Cops and you see like the policeman ask the guy to step out of the car and can I search your vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that in Hawaii. You're not searching a vehicle in Hawaii. And really it's because they're protecting the rights of the citizens because they, and then on top of Honolulu Police Department policy, you have what the prosecutors want. So the prosecutors have certain standards. And so you just don't have really the ability to do some of the things that other police departments have to do. Mm-hmm. And you really got to know your law. It's tricky. It's not easy to be a policeman in Honolulu.
What was so when you were going into the academy, and then you said you're doing it during Apec, which is, for people that don't know, it's an Asia Pacific economic cooperation. It's a forum. It's kind of like an intergovernment forum that they do for people that are promoting free trade in the Pacific Rim. It's consisted, I think, of 21 members, I think. But that's just a little bit of a background for APEC. But, during your time in the academy, how was the learning curve to being able to understand laws and being able to be accustomed to HPD, the HPD way?
Well, it wasn't, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I know that I had a young baby. He was 1 year old at the time, and I had my wife, and we were living in a studio apartment in Aiea, and on the 20th first floor or something. The easiest part about the transition was police academy. It was hard physically, but I'd trained martial arts my whole life. I'd been fit, so like it wasn't difficult in that aspect. Yeah. It's really just like boot camp for the military, except for you go home at night. So if any soldiers watching, you can imagine what boot camp was like. That's what it is, except for you just got to be there at 7 o'clock and you leave at 4:30 or whatever it is. And so you get to go home, see your family, and re-energize, and see your babies, and eat good food, and get sleep. The hard part was adjusting to Hawaii, because there was 5 off-island guys, I think, in my class. And when we're running through scenarios and we're learning things, if you're not, I basically grew up around, like, during my kind of formative years, I grew up in a Filipino household. My best friend's Filipino. And so I grew up around Filipino food and Filipino terminology, and we celebrated Rizal Day, and I had my own barong, and like I was comfortable around it. But for the off-island guys who weren't, it was even worse, because all of a sudden, right, they moved to Oahu. They're probably renting a room from some old lady in Kapolei because they can barely afford anything. And you're going to police academy where everybody's yelling at you, screaming at you, and then all the terminology uses Japanese terminology, Filipino terminology. There's local, pidgin. There's all these things that you're trying to take in at once. You don't know what it means when someone says "Bamba," you learn. Like, no one explains it to you. You know what I mean? I had lived here, so I had people that had helped me with that. So I was so grateful for that. But man, I looked at some of the guys that quit during the academy, and I know it's because it was just too much. It was just too much, because, okay, trying to learn police procedure is one thing, but then when they tell you to go to a certain address and you got to find, Kalakaua Avenue. You don't even know how to say, you don't know how it would be spelled, because you don't know how the letters are pronounced. And, like Kuli'o'o will make your head spin if you're not from Hawaii or you don't understand.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, it's just one of those things. Like there's so much compounded on you. So
It's a different
the actual
culture.
physical stuff was okay, but yeah, it's the culture stuff. And so when they go eat, they're eating different foods that you're not used to. And so it was a blessing for me because I had been acclimated already. I cooked in a local restaurant. So like I had an idea at least. But can you imagine being a guy who grew up eating potatoes and you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're eating rice.
Yeah.
And so that just adds stress on guys when they're already stressed out. They don't know anybody. They left their family. They're trying to get through recruit school, people screaming at them. And then you do something wrong and all 36 guys in your class going to pay for it. And so now everybody's hating on you. And so now you're the doo-doo boy. And like, it can be tough on an off-island guy who's going through it, but that's what you asked for. It's what we signed up for.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good training for being a police officer because it doesn't stop when you graduate, you know? But in academy, you make really great friends and you meet really awesome people because you go through something really difficult together. You feel like battle buddies. And when you get tasered, like being tased, only someone else who's been tased knows what you went through. Being pepper sprayed, which in my opinion was worse because it lasts forever. You know, you get pepper sprayed and you got trying to help somebody out, and then the bull ring when we're in dojo and you got to fight 30 guys. And like, yeah, like,
wow, okay,
yeah, it's just
chaos.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's chaos. Meanwhile, you're trying to find the suspect. So when you're going through these scenarios, like you got to identify the suspect, find out what level of use of force you can have, and you got a bunch of people jumping you, and you're getting hit. I got knocked out. God bless him, one of my favorite people in Hawaii. He just is a super big Hawaiian, and he hit me with a right hand, and he didn't mean to, but I walked into it, and it was a clean shot, and I remember like coming to facing the other way, and you know, the bull ring, they all get around you with pads.
Oh, okay.
Like shield pads. So that they form a ring, and then you got a guy with a big suit on, and you're hitting him with a baton, and you're shouting commands and all these things that they're telling you to do. So it's pretty wild, man. But it's good times when you look back on it. Yeah.
That sounds fun though too, but it sounds intense though.
Well, you like martial arts, so for somebody who likes the workout, for somebody who likes the gym, who spent time in a dojo, you would love it. It's really it's mats everywhere. I mean, you're learning tons of martial arts in Hawaii. It's special because Hawaii's had, you know, MMA way longer than most people, mainstream mainland. People
before UFC got famous.
And everybody knew. I mean, between Ensign and BJ Penn and all these guys, like, but you guys knew who these guys were. Cauliflower ear is not new in Hawaii, so everybody was doing jiu-jitsu for a long time before the people in the mainland. So like, it's a great place to be, man. You learn awesome stuff. You learn everything from Muay Thai, because you're striking the common peroneal on, you know, for like leg kicks, like it'd be low thigh kicks. And you're learning jiu-jitsu. You're learning judo, because you got to be able to throw guys. You know what I mean? You got to be able to take them to the ground, where it's safer for them and you. You know, there's less to worry about when you hit the ground. You have more leverage, things like that. So,
and you're learning respect too.
100%.
Because especially here, I mean, Hawaii is special because we're all in close proximity, right? You go to one town, I think, you know, if for me, when I go out somewhere, I probably know at least like 5 people, you know, wherever I go, because like, and I'm either connected somehow, you know, blood related, or I'm a friend of a friend, or I just know that person automatically. I just went to the gym yesterday and I was like, wow, I just knew like 4 people just standing in one place, but they all came up to me, and I'm like,
that's awesome about Hawaii. I love that about Hawaii.
That's and I think when you live here, you gain you learn respect, and then you gain it as well. And then when 100%. You're able to transfer that to other places, then it's different because everybody can kind of stay in their own, I want to say silos, and they can kind of just stay within their own divisions. But here you learn to love everyone, I
Yeah.
think.
Well,
You
you
know?
kind of get forced to. I always tell my friends, like, young people um in America should be forced to live in like a major city for like 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
because it teaches you things that you'll never learn on the farm, that you'll never learn in your beautiful subdivision in like suburban,
Right.
uh, like my kids live in a suburban area.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Dirt roads. And if we want to see our neighbors, we go to see our neighbors, but we don't have to see people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to a city like Honolulu or a big city and you got to live in an apartment, where you get somebody above you, somebody below you, somebody on both sides. You're going to ride an elevator with somebody. You're going to run into people that you know. The parking is crazy. Good luck. You better leave early. You learn how to park away from the cars so they don't ding your doors. You learn how to back into a stall. Nobody backs into stalls. Like, I haven't seen someone back into a stall in 5 years since I left Hawaii, because people just don't do it. But in Hawaii, everybody backs into their stall. You always try to park in a place so you don't get dinged, because the parking stalls are too small. Whereas when you live in this cushiony suburban mainland American lifestyle, you got super wide driving lanes, super wide parking stalls. You don't have to see people. There's parking everywhere. There's no pressure. And pressure forces you together, and you got to work out your differences. So you're not going to act wild when you know that you're going to run into 5 people today. Right? So you like show respect, because one of those 5 people could be that guy you were acting like a dummy with, right? Or the guy you owe money to.
Right. And it's a chain reaction. Yeah, exactly. It could be someone you owe money to. It could be someone, if you work somewhere, they could be the friend of your boss kind of thing. Like, it's a chain reaction.
Yeah. Everybody's connected or everybody's related. And so you got to really be respectful. But it's a great thing. That's what makes Hawaii so awesome, is that respectful culture. And it's like the Ohana culture, where like you can't get away from your problems. So you got to deal with them. And if you've never lived in the mainland, then it's hard to explain. But in the mainland, you can never see anyone you know. You know what I mean? It's if I see someone I know, it trips me out. When I see somebody, I'm like, oh, guess who I seen today? I tell my wife, hey, guess who I saw today? But in Hawaii, you can't go anywhere, which makes it interesting for a policeman, because you just arrested 2 guys that night. You guarantee you're going to run into him again. And so it is cool, though, when you run into guys who are like, hey, you remember me? Like, I just want to say thank you. You were good to me that night. Like, I was acting stupid or whatever. I apologize. But, and you're just doing what you had to do. You know what I mean? So that's cool. And that, I like that about Hawaii, because it does hold you accountable, because you're going to run into people. And so you try to treat people well. And it's still cool even to this day when somebody leaves like a message on my YouTube. It's just like, hey, you arrested me and whatever. And you were super cool. And so people will hit me up and say, hey, I seen somebody said that they got arrested by you or whatever. And they said, you treated them well or whatever. So that's cool to see, but in Hawaii, you're going to see that more than anywhere else, because people understand family and they understand community in Hawaii. It's really cool, man. People who live in Hawaii, I think it's hard for them really to grasp that it's so special. I think they maybe understand the concept a little, but if you haven't lived somewhere where they don't have that, man, it really accentuates how special Hawaii is and the people of Hawaii.
Was it harder for you when you transferred to Hawaii because, the color of your skin, you're white, and there's a stereotype here, especially when people talk about haole, right? They just think maybe someone with white skin, when technically I think it's someone with a foreigner mindset, right?
Yeah.
You could say Portuguese could be haole, you know what I'm saying? Or
Right.
Japanese native comes here, they're haole. But automatically when someone says they're haole, white skin, and for yourself, you're white.
Sure.
So have you
Well, I don't think
experienced that?
I was spared from a lot of that. Sure, I experienced it. 100%. If you're going to arrest some guy and he's drunk or whatever, and he's mad and it's passionate, you know, he's fighting with some, it's like a bar fight, bar closures, kuhio. And, you know, you're going to hear that. So it happens. But, and maybe on the road, right? You accidentally cut somebody off and all of a sudden they roll down the window and they call you hale. So it happens. But for the most part, remember, I had friends that I made in that first few months local boys who brought me into their families, and I got to eat with them and eat their foods and learn their family culture. And then when I came back, so I would fly to Hawaii every year after that. When I moved there for 6 months, came back, and I would fly out for one trip a year, just for like a week, save up my money and go there for a week just to see them. So I got to hang out with them and, you know, learn all the greatest spots to go eat and, you know, spend a lot of time at certain beaches and certain spots that I wouldn't have known if I didn't have local people to show me, like ice ponds. And I would never have gone to Makaha Beach, which we would go there several times a year with one of the lifeguards there who's really good to my family. And so like I had that influence. And then when I moved there for the 7 years, I was surrounded by my brothers. I mean, when you become a police officer, it does feel like they're your brothers, because not a lot of people have been through what they've been through to get to that point. Not a lot of people have to go through what police officers go through on the daily. So when you're persecuted, right, exactly. And when you're persecuted with a group of people, you feel closer to those group of people. So I remember, like, hale wasn't I heard hale every day, but I would say, like, so if there was a suspect we're looking for, the witness would say, oh, it was a hale boy, 6 feet tall, whatever. So like it's not just a negative term, you know what I mean? When it can be, but the most of the time when I would say, when I'm trying to get like a witness statement, and be like, well, what did he look like? Was it a hale guy? Was it popolo? And then they would tell you. So it was used for color. You know what I mean? But I worked in that kind of technical environment where I needed descriptions. And so if it was a local guy, the APB would say local male. But let's be honest, when you say local male, it didn't mean a white guy. Right? Even he could have been a local white guy. So the APB would say local male in his 30s wearing all black or whatever. Or I was going to say hale guy in his 30s wearing all black. And so I heard it a lot because I worked in the world where you have to describe people. And every day, 100 times, you're looking for somebody or someone's describing somebody. So I got used to the term hale, but it wasn't in that derogative format for the most part.
It was a descriptive.
It was descriptive, yeah. And my and my best friends were Hawaiian guys who were from there, and so like my brother, my best friend in Hawaii, Moku, he's from Kaneohe, and one time, one guy called me hale, but he meant it. You know, he was trying to start trouble, and my partner wasn't happy, and he was like. He went and talked to him, another Hawaiian, and kind of set him straight because he was acting a fool. The guy was doing something wrong. That's why we were there. He was getting arrested. And so I had local boys that would stand up for me and, you know what I mean, show me that love. And I mean, forever I'm in debt to those guys because they took me into their culture and made me their family, and they didn't have to do that. There's guys that looked out to me time after time after time. There's no reason. They weren't going to get anything from me. And that's rare. You don't get that in the mainland. Everyone's trying to manipulate. If someone does something for you in the mainland, there's always this risk that they're manipulating. If someone gives you something here in Michigan, they might not want something right there because that might be too obvious.
But they'll remember it.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking for that reciprocity. And it's just a weird thing to abandon that mindset when you go to Hawaii because you're pessimistic. As you become a police officer, as time goes on, you become a cynic. You become more pessimistic. You see the worst of people. You never see people at their best. It's very rare. It's mostly people at their worst. And you start to hate people. It's like a thing. You just want to protect your family from people. You don't want people talking to you. You only go eat at places where you know you can, sit in a place where you're not exposed to people, because you're going to run into someone you arrested, probably the guy cooking your food. You know what I mean? So you never tell someone you're a policeman. When you go eat, like you take your uniform off, you make sure you go through the drive-thru. Last thing you want is them seeing you in a uniform. In a uniform,
right?
Yeah, you don't want people drop off food at the substation because auntie's trying to be nice, like, oh, I made you this manapua, or you know what I mean? You can't eat it. I feel bad for the people that do it because they don't know it, but there's not a chance policemen are eating their food, right? They can't risk it. So the only time you can get it, say someone calls Royal Bakery and they order, manapuas, or do you remember that place that had the cronuts? Remember the cronuts?
Yeah. I forgot what it's called though.
I think Royal did on Baratania, just like west of Mauna Kea. Or no, maybe it was just east of Mauna Kea. They had the cronut. It was one of my favorite things. But if someone called it in, and they would have their wife call it in and pick it up and then bring it to the substation, because they don't want, you know what I mean? They don't
risk. Too much of a risk.
It's too much of a risk. So civilians, you call them civilians, you just don't know anymore, because you don't get to see normal people. You're not, during your day, a normal guy doesn't come up to you, especially you work nighttime in Chinatown. Who at 2 a.m. is going to walk up to you in Chinatown who's normal?
Yeah.
When I was there, they were either homeless or drunk, right? Because they were at the bars like some pub crawl or whatever. So you're just meeting people who they're not at their best, and you see horrible things. You see, dads who assaulted their daughters, and grandpas who killed their grandkids, and just horrible stuff all the time. So you start to, you try not to let it happen, but it eats away at you. 100%.
Did you have to take therapy to, while you were in the police force, just to kind of release some of that?
No, you don't have to. And I think that has to be looked at again. I don't know if you can make someone get therapy, but there's smarter people than me who can figure out how to introduce that into the system for police officers, so that there's a process by which they can detox and they can get it off their chest. Because you can't go home, you don't tell your wife. You don't go home and tell your wife about the dead baby you saw, because she's holding your baby. Right? That'll break their brain. Yeah. It broke your brain, but you got to go out there every night and do it. So it calluses up real quick. So it's just a weird, only policemen, you notice they just really talk to other policemen because they understand.
They understand.
Yeah. And it's not, they don't pick that on purpose. It's not like they don't want to be your friend, but they can't talk to you about stuff.
Yeah, it's a different type of processing, I think.
100%.
If you're in that system and you see things like that daily, stuff like Mike Miske types of BS, or you see situations where you see abusive relationships, and I think I get it. You can't explain that to other people because maybe they don't understand that and they haven't been in that situation. But with what you guys have experienced, especially District 1, I mean, that's, what is that, Tantalus to Alamana Beach Park, I'm guessing Kalihi side too.
Almost. So the Cocoa Head side of Kalihi. So basically from Liliha.
Okay.
So
Okay.
from Liliha, so the other side of A'ala Park, basically.
Mm.
So the
That's far.
other side of A'ala Park, all the way to Punahou.
Oh, that's far.
I mean, one block before Punahou is called Haole Street. So past Kalakaua, a couple blocks. You know, Zippy's right there.
Yeah.
Is that McCully Zippy's, the one on the south, right above the school, right above the
Yes.
elementary school?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the border. So picture from there all the way to Liliha, from Ala Moana all the way up Tantalus, all the way up to the top. It's a big district, and that's where it's all happening, right? That's where, I mean, District 7, which goes from basically McCully to probably the blowhole.
Okay. Wow. Right? Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Halona.
Wow.
So that's District 7. That's a super long district, but they get tons of action all the way up through up to Kahala. And then it quiets down as you go, you know, Cocoa Head bound. And then it's really super far district. And that's a part, that's the thing about Hawaii, is the civil engineering is such that, you know, you're on an island, right, with mountains and a shoreline. So the roads were based on the shoreline and then the valleys. Because you can't just, you know what I mean? So all the streets, that's why you get traffic all backed up. That's why traffic's a nightmare. It's the worst in the country. It's because it's an island with valleys and streams that you got to work around.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's only one way out of Pololo.
Yeah.
But if you want to live in Pololo, you got to take the road.
That's how it is.
That's just how it is. So it's hard sometimes to get back up when stuff goes down, right? Remember, because District 7 only really communicates. They have their own channel. So all the officers, let's say 16 officers, only communicate on that channel.
That one. Wow.
So they don't hear what's going on in District 4, which is, you know, the other side of Kalama Valley, right? All the way up to Kahuku.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Think about how, talk about a big district.
Yeah.
Right? Kailua, Kaneohe, Kahuku, Kahana, go all the way up to, dude, that's one district.
That's crazy.
And you might have, what, 10 officers? So if something goes down in Kaneohe, no one in District 7 is going to hear about it. They're on a completely different radio.
Wow, it's just those. Yeah, I mean, basically just those 10 officers that have to patrol that one area.
Bro, imagine getting a call, a guy, you know, swinging a knife at Polynesian Culture Center out front, right? And you're in the Kaneohe station. And you get a officer say, hey, send more units, which, bro, if you hear that, like, that's the cool thing about Hawaii. And see, policemen have this thing. They don't like to sound like soft, and they don't want to sound, they never want to panic because you get made fun of, right? So you never go on the radio panicked. So you make that mistake when you're a young policeman, when you're a rookie, and you go on the radio like, send me another unit. You never live that down. You'll hear that line up. Guys be like, oh, until Korenic screaming on the radio like a little girl, right? So you get made fun of. So what you do is you always got to try to stay like composed. And you could tell the motormen and the veterans, because they go on the radio and it's so quiet. You just hear them be like, 167, can you send me one more unit? But there's crazy stuff going down, and certain officers never call for help. So you hear someone call for a unit. So some guys, when you hear them say 167, send me another unit, it's really like another officer screaming for help. So sometimes, depending on who it is, you're like, this is serious. If he's asking for help, that's serious.
Yeah, that means something's going down.
That means something big is going down. Big melee, 30 guys, bats, whatever. And so you got to fly. So you're at the station, you like trying to get your stuff together because you were writing a report. You hop in the car and you're flying down because you don't know what's going on. And he might lose signal, right? What if he goes inside a house on the mountainside, right? Because, you know, Kahana and those areas are so close to the beach. So you could lose signal. You don't hear. I can't tell you how many times you're on the bottom of an apartment, you don't get signal. And so you cannot call on the radio. You're going in there deaf and mute. They can't hear you. I've been in a building where I needed officers. They were in the building, but they couldn't hear me on the radio because, right. And I found the suspect, or maybe they found the suspect, and I was looking for them.
You're still looking,
they're alone with the suspect. Suspect don't know that. So that's why you can't act that way in front of him, right? You got to be like, I can't tell you how many times I was like, I can't tell you how many times I fake transmitted on the radio in front of a suspect.
Well, just to
make him think that my guy's on the other side of that door. Because if they think there's a chance to get away and they're not going back to jail, they're facing 10, 15 years or whatever. You know, they're on a parole violation. You got to do we call it verbal judo. You gotta convince them sometimes, like it's not worth it. So I can't tell you how many times I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm over here. Just stay right there. He's cooperative. Just stay right there by the door.
Show, yeah.
but I'm by myself.
Nobody.
There's nobody. So he turns around, puts his hands behind his back, and he walk out. And there's nobody. He's like, oh, I thought you said there was guys over here. And you're like, bro, I was worried you was gonna be a problem. Yeah. Like I wasn't sure you had weapons or whatever. So, man, it's tricky. Like it's fun. It's the funnest thing you'll ever do. It's like playing a video game, but you're in real life. But the stakes are real. The stakes are high. So you kind of learn, you adapt. Your body gets used to the adrenaline spikes and the adrenaline dumps, and I'm sure you blow out your adrenals over the few years. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. Especially if you're going in there blind, and you basically have to bluff your way into getting out of a situation or making it smooth.
Yeah, dude. And then sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you just got to be nice. Like I can't tell you how many times I was with a big, you have this big 300-pound Sole at the park, and you two. And let's be honest, I don't care how much martial arts you know. If the guy's big enough,
you don't want to go up against that.
Yeah, it's not. You're gonna get hurt. Yeah, he might end up arrested. But you're hurt now, and you got babies and a wife and like soccer practice later. So all this stuff goes through your head. And then, so I've had to like just be cool with them and tell them, hey man, like it is what it is, right? You got this warrant. It's a no bail retake warrant. Sheriff's, you know, you've been wanted, right? You never checked in with your PO or whatever. The judge revoked bail, and you got to go in, and you just kind of tell them like, listen, if we do this right, like I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to let my desk lieutenant know that you're cooperative. I'm going to, if you want a cigarette or you want to call your girlfriend or you want your girlfriend to come down here, you want to give her a kiss, right? Cause she's upstairs in the apartment, and he knows he might go away for a while, or do you want to say something to your kids? Right. So you take care of them like that. And I learned it from watching other guys take care of guys. And,
yeah, cause they'll remember that,
100%.
And de-escalates the situation.
Totally. Especially when you appeal to the Ohana side of things in Hawaii is super important, because guys love their family in Hawaii. Family's everything. So when you appeal to their Hawaiian legacy, that means something to them. And so they want to be respectful. It's crazy how it works. Like they were just running from you or fighting you or whatever. But when it's over, they're like, all right, officer. And then they're like, I apologize. My last name is such and such, right? And I come from a good family, and we respect the police. Like I would hear that stuff all the time from a guy that just dug out from me and I had to chase or whatever. But when it's all done, it's kind of like a game. And the truth is they are the bad guy, right? Like they're running and you're the police officer, and your job is to get away. My job is to catch you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like this game theory. You have to kind of convert it to a game in your head for your brain to survive, for that to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, my job's to chase you, your job's to run. I'm not mad at you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you tell guys, that's actually a strategy that works a lot. Like you tell guys, hey, I remember I was at Kaulabella Mall, and it's a long mall, right? A couple hundred yards, got Nu'uanu Stream on the right, and it's dark. And then you got H1 at the top side.
Yeah.
And you're wearing all this gear. You got boots, you got your uniform, you're wearing a vest, right? You got radio, you got 40 pounds of equipment. This guy's got his slippers kicked off already. He's ready to go. And just board shorts, no shirt, barefoot. You're not going to catch him. And if he goes and digs up through the stream or the canal,
he's gone.
He's gone. He's been playing in that canal his whole life. Good luck finding somebody in Nu'uanu who grew up over there.
That's his playground right there.
He knows every rock, every boulder to jump on. He knows what backyard's got dogs. You know what I mean? So sometimes you tell him, like, hey, if you're going to run, like, I get it. Now's the time, because it's going to happen. Like, you're going to get arrested now. And but listen, if you run, I ain't mad at you. I've said that a dozen times. If you run, I ain't mad at you. But I got to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I got to bring you in, and I'll take care of you if you cooperate. You know, I'll be real good to you. And if you run, I'm going to chase you. And I'm not going to stop till I get you. And you hope that they just come to their senses and they think, is it worth it? You know what I mean? If they think that you're going to keep going, you're not just going to give up. Because I'm convinced that guys who run from the police been chased by police that didn't catch them.
Yeah,
right?
Because they already know they can outrun the police.
They already know it works. But if you've never been chased by the police and got away, there's not a chance you're running from the police. Because you're like, oh, they're just going to catch me. I'm just going to catch another charge.
Yeah.
But they've run before. Typically, the majority of them have run before. And usually it's like a cop that either didn't want the liability, right? Didn't want the paperwork. So he's like, all right, we'll get him another time.
Yeah, they gave
usually the older guys. They're like, I'm not getting hurt. What am I going to do? Jump down in the canal after him? He jumped I've seen guys jump 20 feet into a canal. Like,
wow.
Up the mountain. You know, there's all those canals that run down between people with backyards. I've seen them jump, and I know as I'm breaking ankle. So there are times where I was like, it ain't worth it. Yeah. Good luck, bro. I hope you stay out long. You know what I mean? I hope it was worth it.
Even if that guy could be hurt right at the bottom after that.
100%. I've seen that too. I saw one guy in my first couple months up the mountain. I was working Papalaua, and I seen a guy. I was with a more senior officer. That's the one thing. When I was in Papalaua, guys always covered me off well, because I was heading up to Papalaua, and Papalaua typically takes care of its own. We don't get a lot of problems in Papalaua. Okay, you maybe get a guy who burgs a bunch of houses, who's smoking batu, but he grew up over there, and like everybody knows him, and he's probably burged their house before. But it's like, oh, that's Johnny Boy, or you know what I mean? That's Khalil, who the guy, the little kid that grew up across the street. Right. Well, eventually he gets caught, and they give him lickings, or you know what I mean? They figure it out, or they turn him in. Right. So they really do take care of themselves in Papalaua. It's really it's a wild thing to see.
I want to switch topics a little bit, and I want to talk about the Maui Fires.
Yeah.
The Maui. And well, first off, you know, between counties, so you know, Honolulu, and then MPD, I guess. Is it consistent with like a disaster type of catastrophe, like the fire? Like, let's say there's a fire on Tantalus or something like that, and it's going down. It's heading to like Ala Moana Beach Park. Is it the same protocol between HPD as well as MPD?
So I can't speak for MPD, but that's a given, right? But yeah, I mean, Hawaii has protocols. And they're usually determined by like other larger cities or places that have experienced these catastrophes. My prayers go out to the people in Maui. It's a horrific thing that happened, and it's indescribable. It's just crazy. It's so crazy how horrible that was. And my heart really breaks for Hawaii as a whole and for Maui. And I have friends in Maui, and it's just horrible. But I know that here's what I know from an insider's perspective from working as a part of an emergency responder, right? For the police department, because we have the same type of culture as, say, fire does, just different because we deal with crime and they deal with fire.
Yeah.
For emergency protocols, right? Like hurricanes.
Yeah.
I remember when we had hurricanes and when everybody was worried, and you got to remember that there's 2,100 police officers at the Honolulu Police Department. And so they're essentially in charge of everything. So those 16 guys are in charge of that district. Traffic control, emergency response, safety stuff. But they have families too. So there's nothing wrong with the first thing I think of is my wife and kids at home. I'm at work and they activate some emergency response. And the first thing I think of is my wife and kids. I got to figure out, because I can't be there with them because I'm here at work. So the Honolulu Police Department will allow for certain things like the wives and children of the police officers who are working because they can't be there to be protected. They'll like provide for them to be able to go to the station, right? Or certain designated areas that they may have.
Yeah.
So that's twofold. Not only is it to take care of them because they're at a disadvantage because their husbands or wives are required to be working to help the community.
They're on the front lines. Yeah.
But also to take take away the distraction of a police officer having to worry about his family, dealing with the phone calls, right? Because you're on a phone call. I had a guy peeking in my windows, dirtbag, peeking in my windows at night, trying to look at my wife.
Wow.
At about 10 p.m. Well, I went to work at 9 p.m. I'm working in town. I lived in Kahului. He's a scumbag who had been in jail for rape and attempted murder and did 20 years for it, convicted. And I'm at work on a call and my wife calls me panicking. Somebody's on our porch looking through our window. So imagine how, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you're distraught at that point.
And you're supposed to be helping somebody. And I don't care what anybody says. You can't fault somebody for not, like, that's your family. Those are your babies. That's all that really matters to you in that moment. So I've had police officers who crimes were being committed against one police officer, someone was like messing with his wife and kid and saying really nasty things to the wife and tried to grab the baby. He was off at the station with an arrest, meaning he had a body.
At the same time.
He had a dude in handcuffs. You cannot leave him. He's your responsibility until he gets booked. You're stuck. Zero chance of getting away. And like that happens every day.
That's insane. Wow.
Right. Imagine anything that's ever happened. Think about car accidents. Think about all these things that maybe have happened to you or your family. Imagine them happening while you are an emergency responder at an emergency for somebody else. Right. So I said all that to say that the firemen in Maui firemen in Lahaina live in Lahaina. Several of them, homes destroyed, dogs, cats dead, not knowing where their family's at because they're floating around in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to set context for when something does go down and there's an emergency protocol that's initiated.
Mm-hmm.
You add all that crazy stuff to your brain.
Mm.
And then picture the guys driving the trucks trying to hook up to the hydrants. Picture the captains who are making the calls, sending what units to where. Because oftentimes there'd be
of that stuff at the back of their minds. Too.
Right. They got that too. So there's 100 people involved who all are thinking about their people too.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting texts from people. And then there's miscommunication. Like, dude, if the radios are down and they're texting each other, how many times you sent a text wrong or autocorrects and said said the opposite of what you wanted to say. So people trying to communicate with text, but then texts are down. Right. So all of a sudden people need walkie-talkies. And so it's like, hey, drive this out to here. He needs a walkie-talkie because the radio don't work or whatever. Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for them. And meanwhile, their family's gone. They don't know what's going on with their family. But they're watching a fire cross the street into another neighborhood. So they got to act. It's
a lot. It's a lot to take in then.
It's crazy. And so from a first responder's perspective, those guys went through the stress that they went through was compounded with the fact that they are responsible for other people's lives. They took oaths. They trained for this. You see someone needs help, you're the only one there. She needs to be carried, put in the water so she don't burn or whatever. Meanwhile, you saw the flames, you saw the video, 100-foot flames going horizontal where they never should have been able to reach, but the winds were too, it's like a movie. It's like a horror movie. Dude, I don't know how anyone could have acted clear-minded, and I don't know how anybody could have been rational in those moments. So anyone who made any right decision in those moments is a hero to me. Those policemen, those firemen, those heroes, neighbors that went and helped the elderly man because they know he can't walk, or you know what I mean? Like, dude, we're all just people in that moment. Yeah, they're a fireman, but they're just a dad like you or a husband. That's just
they have their lives, and like you were saying, a lot. I mean, I think 15 out of those 16 firemen that worked in Lahaina, I think they all lost their houses. You know what I mean? They lost their homes. I'm not sure about their families, but the thing is, they were out there right on the front lines battling these flames that were too much. And my heart goes out to them too.
It's a fight they couldn't win.
Yeah.
Like, you ever been in a match with somebody you weren't going to win? You know what I mean? You're rolling with the guy or whatever, and you're like, I don't stand a chance. But you know what I mean? That they were in a battle that they couldn't win. That you can't battle flames like that with those resources. I think that resources played a key role in what happened in Maui. And it's easy to point fingers at whose fault that is, but I mean, it takes a lot of people for that to happen. And so I'm sure it's little mistakes here and little mistakes there that you just add up in this perfect storm. You got the hurricane. You have the winds are flaming the fires, right? It was dry. Hiko never shut off the power. They can't just use salt water.
Didn't go off.
Yeah. It's like, I've heard a lot about salt water. They can't just throw, their hoses in the water. You got to deal with cliffs and sharp rocks, and how do you filter the water, right? Like because you don't want to suck up something that's going to clog the hose and all this stuff. So there's a reason for the hydrants. And so is it somebody's mistakes? Yes. But how do you put more weight on one person's mistakes than on another, right? Because if Hiko shut off the power, maybe that fire doesn't start.
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody had blown a siren, right? Maybe the people get out, so when the line fell and started the fire, no one dies.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't close that road at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if they waited and they closed a different road, but they're trying to make decisions in real time. Man, you got to make split decisions like that with flames. I don't know.
Hard to think clearly during that
That
whole process. Yeah.
What I try to do is put myself in that position, man, because I think that I do this in my life, right? I see a pastor, or I see a teacher, or I see a judge, and I think to myself, judge, like Your Honor, or the teacher is Mr. So-and-so, who this is what he does, right? I don't think that, no, he's just me. He woke up like I did today, busted his toe on his bed. The coffee was cold. He had diarrhea this morning, right? Like he got in a fight with his wife.
Yeah.
He forgot to pay a bill, got hit with a late charge.
Just a bad day for. Yep.
Yeah, like everybody has those days. So when you see a policeman or you see a fireman and you're like, this is what I would have done, you really just got to think like, I was an idiot today. Like I probably would have done the same thing. Or, you know what I mean? If a cop loses his temper or whatever, he's not supposed to, right? But he's just you. He just went to police academy. That's all he did. He's, you know what I mean? We just got to relate more to each other. You know what I mean? Like you're a podcaster. Well, you're just like everybody else. Like if people think I could never have a podcast because I don't have room in my house, you're like, I don't have room in my house either. But I made it happen, right? Like people would think, oh, I would have better audio. No, you wouldn't. You got the same problems I got. I got a motorcycle riding down my street doing, revving his engine or whatever. We're all just the same. We're all going through the same stuff. So those Maui police officers, can you imagine the guy that was running late for work that day? How the guilt he has now? He never late, but he was late that day. Or, you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that there's probably wives and husbands out there that just made a mistake and their husband went to the store or their wife went to the farmer's market, or, you know what I mean? He decided not to stop and get gas. But then when it's time to leave, his car don't have gas. And then somebody dies in his family, right? It's heartbreaking, the guilt that everyone's going to feel. So right now it's like, can we just be there to support the people that are recovering? Give what money we can give. Try to be compassionate right now. And
mourn with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like let them mourn. How about the firemen? They got to mourn. Because maybe they didn't lose a grandma or a wife, but they lost all their memories. You know, they lost all their kids' drawings or, their dog. And that's at like the best case scenario. Or how about the guys that did, who were saving someone else while their grandma burned? Dude, that once that gets in your head, man,
it's hard to think about. Yeah.
Oh, it really is, dude. And so my heart really breaks for those guys, because I think they're heroes and they do a job that when stuff hits the fan, they got to run towards the flames. And we want to run away from the flames. And if you take that same concept we've been talking about, they're just like us. They want to run away from the flames too. The same urge you have to get out of your car and run to the water. They had that urge from the fire truck. But if they don't spray that water, people die. So, man, that burden is so heavy, and they'll never recover. So when you talk about counseling, I mean, Maui is going to need like tons of support emotionally and financially for decades for this. And I really hope that they get it. I hope that the US government gives them enough resources, counseling, money above all things right now. I hope they help them rebuild.
Yeah, rebuild the lives of those that lost something.
What you can rebuild.
Yeah.
Like ask a person that lost everything what they're going to rebuild. That nothing means anything anymore. It ain't the four walls that make it home. Right? So I know firemen that I love to death. My great friends are firemen, and I can't imagine,
what they're going through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the loss they've endured. And then the people they probably tried to save, and they couldn't have been able to save them. So it's hard. It's hard on their hearts and their minds, because it's going to last them probably the rest of their life,
For sure. Because those things change you. Think about, your accident that you talked about earlier. You're never going to forget that.
Oh, yeah.
And it changes how you think about certain things, and it puts things in perspective, and like you'll live a context, your life will be forever changed by that. So, but if anyone can overcome it, it's Hawaii. There's a resilience in Hawaii like no other place I've ever been. How do you live in a place like Hawaii that everyone wants, right? Everyone wants to take from you. And every chance they get, it is taken from you. And
even we were speaking about Ohana, the Aloha Way here. I mean, people really rallied behind helping families out, like literally guys that probably just have like full-time jobs, and they couldn't really get out of work. They just found a way to get out of work and really tried to help people out there.
I got friends who called me from Maui and were, telling me crazy stories, and they just left. They took their days off and asked their supervisor or whatever, can I use my leave? And then they just went over there just to help people, to like drink coffee with people, to get food for people who maybe couldn't walk, or, to help people clean up and bathe, or find places to make a bed.
Just to provide support. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Just to even talk with people. Sometimes it's like after that, and people didn't sleep for days, right? And then they finally get a place. Like I know Kings Maui, a lot of people are staying in the church there, like sleeping on the floor and all this other stuff. You finally get sleep. You finally crash for 10 hours because you didn't sleep for 3 days. And then you wake up and you got to process what just happened. And you're worried about people, and there's no lists yet of who's made it and who didn't make it. And so sometimes you do just need someone to sit down next to you and talk story and let you like get it out. And so even those people that are doing that, I mean, God bless them, because Maui needs all the help they can get. And
they need all the support. And for people listening, I mean, they still need support. They're going to need support for a long time, because even though, like we were saying, just to help them rebuild, I mean, they can't rebuild everything, but at least help them restore some of the things they've lost, So, yeah, definitely. So I want to kind of start ending things off. So for yourself, what's next for you? You've been really pushing content creating, and for yourself, there's a ton of avenues that you can go into, especially with, I mean, you've been really posting stuff about Mike Miske lately, and what's next for you?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a dad, and right now my kids are real big into sports, and there are priorities for that kind of stuff. When I started my channel, it was a way for me to reconnect with the culture that I fell in love with and lived with, and that took me in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a way for me to still be involved and to help kind of detox. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a lot of stuff like PTSD and things like that that you experience as a police officer. You don't really know when you're in it till you get out and you realize how much you changed. And so my channel helps with that. And I met some really cool people. I met a lot of people like yourself that do, you know, podcasts, or, you know, Todd Atkins and those guys who reach out that I would never have met, right, if I didn't do this. Yeah. And I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Doug Korenic. And the Patreon is really just a community of people who get together and we talk about all things Hawaii, all things crime. Sometimes crime might not have to do with Hawaii. Most of the time it does. Mm-hmm. Right now, we just finished a book called The Good Father on Larry Mahalo, where we kind of broke down Larry's life and his involvement in Hawaii. And lately, we've been talking a lot about Queen Liliuokalani and her diaries, and we've been reading some of the things that she wrote. Mm-hmm. So I do have a community of people that we meet every Monday night at 5:30 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and that's been where my time has been. I haven't created a lot of content in 2023, ever since the last Miske video. Mm-hmm. Not a lot has happened on the Miske front. I didn't pick that. I didn't know that was going to be the thing that kind of blew up, but that's just the way it works. And so, you know, I'm sure you can, you can relate. You don't know what podcasts are going to do better than others, what people are going to share or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that to kind of document my life, my transition from Michigan to Hawaii, and the growth of my family and me as a police officer. Right. It turned into that. Mm-hmm. And so I find out that I still get to investigate. I still get to go through the notorious crimes of Hawaii's past and present and really break them down and, you know, kind of from an expanded view, get into the minutia of everything and why the guy got convicted or why he got let off or how come no one was ever caught. So we do those things, and that's been real fun for me. It's been real rewarding. I love my Patreon ohana. They're really, really awesome and dedicated. And so my social media content, that will continue to come organically as things happen. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been developments on the Miske case, except for they just recently sent out the questionnaires for jury duty. Mm-hmm. They've been going back and forth on what questions are allowed to be asked and things like that. So there's some developments. I think it's going to happen in 2024. We'll have a trial. Mm-hmm. So maybe you'll get more coverage from me on that, just because people tune in to my channel for updates on that. So, you know, I'll give them some of that stuff. But for the most part, I like talking story with guys like you. And, you know, congratulations, by the way. Like, you're doing a great job. You got a nice little setup. It's a grind, right? It is a grind. It's a grind. So you're working hard. So I know how it is, man. So that's why when you hit me up, I was like, yeah, I definitely would do that, because I know what it's like. And, you know, so I'll continue to do things like this, and you'll probably see some content here and there, but right now I'm focusing on the Patreon.
How can, actually real quick on jury duty. So how does someone pick, specific people for the jury for a high profile case? Like,
man, there ain't no way that's going to be unbiased. I don't understand how that works, but listen, I mean, you know, people who live under a rock. I'm sure you know a few people who have no idea what's going on, but they're rare. You got to get those people, because you're not, I promise you know enough about the Miske stuff to where you're not a good jury. You're not a good jury member. Yeah. I ain't. All 100 of my patrons could never be jury. Right. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll figure it out. As long as the defense and the prosecution agree on the jury members, it doesn't matter. Even if there's a bias, the jury members, as long as both sides, the prosecution and defense, agree that, they say, okay, there's a bias there, but it's not, we also think they're a reasonable person that will overcome that bias with evidence. Like, there's tons of things. I think people need to realize that the law is more of an art than it is a science. In my opinion, like the fact that all you got to do is convince other people like me and you, Gavin, I'm a dummy, right? I'm just a normal dude. You got to just convince people like me that you got to tell a better story. As a defense, we all love stories. So as a defense, if you tell a good story, and I believe it, all I got to do is say not guilty. This isn't like the jurors
Very
don't
true.
have to prove. As a juror, you don't have to prove to someone, here's why I think he's innocent. That's not real. They just have to say innocent. And you get the 12 guys to say innocent, that guy's off. You don't even need 12 guys, but if you get 12 guys to say guilty, he's guilty. So if the prosecution tells a good enough story and they selected a jury trial, then you're going to jail. Or you pick a judge and then it's just up to one guy, because you can waive your right to a jury trial. You just go with a judge. Sometimes it's good to go with a judge because you're like, he understands the law. So all I got to do is show reasonable doubt. A little sliver. Beyond all I need is a shadow of a doubt. And so sometimes it's good for the judge for you to pick a judge trial. But if there's a shadow of a doubt, but you think that you got a better story, then you go with that jury trial, because all you got to do is tell the better story. Those 12 people buy into it.
And then you're out. That's interesting. That is like an art, because then you just have to find a jury that's unbiased in a way, and that will believe your story is better.
Think about it. What you're doing is you're writing a story. If you're selecting the jury as a defense attorney or as a prosecutor, you get to be the guy that writes the story. So you get to write the setting, like where court is. You got all these appeals and you got all these things. You're just asking the court, can we have the trial here, out of state? Can we have it over here, whatever? Can we have it on this date? We want to push it back more. Like we want to push it to the fall. There's reasons for that. There's a reason for everything why you would rather have a jury in the summer, right? Like there's statistics that these attorneys are smart, and they're like, we know that more people get let off during this time of the year. So we would rather have a summer trial because of this or whatever. Like this is anecdotal, but I'm just saying there's 100 things. And you get to set the setting where it takes place. You get to petition the judge to throw out certain things that can't be admissible. Can you imagine that recent? You remember that recent murder case where the Papalaua guy, he was like a dental assistant or whatever, and he got let off on that last trial. Bro, they weren't allowed to talk about the prior case. That man had done that before. He's in prison for raping and murdering another girl in the same way. And then his DNA was found on this girl, but that's not allowed to the jury because it was thrown out. It was not admissible. So imagine you being a juror. You hear the defense tell a really good story and you're like, I don't know. There's a shadow of a doubt. And then you get out of the courtroom and you find out that guy did the same thing to another girl in another military base just 2 years later. Oh, dude. Right? And then you snap out of it. You're like, whoa, he had me in a trance with that story he told. So we're easily tricked, right? That's why we love movies. And we're sitting down. It's like a juror. They're sitting down to watch a movie. Well, how is this movie going to turn out? And the guy who tells the better story wins the case. So with this trial, who knows, man? It's been declared extra super complex, which is why it's taken so long. And I think the longer it goes on, the greater the chances that someone screws up.
Right. Or the greater the chances they'll find someone that maybe might not even understand what's going on, you know?
Right.
And then they might vote wrong.
100%. And then think there are people that will die that were witnesses because they're getting older.
Yeah.
Or they move off island and they don't want to come back. or their memory, right? I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So every year that goes on, you got people who, when this arrest first happened, it had been 3 or 4 years prior that the stuff happened. That the people got called in and testified and grand juries were assembled and all this. Now we're 3-4 years after that. Now they got to try to tell a story that they haven't thought about in 3 or 4 years. So, dude, there's a lot. Like, who knows, man?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, with the delays, I could see that maybe they already foresee someone that's maybe they have dementia, borderline dementia, and they can't testify at that point. You know?
Or just regular memory loss, or like
regular memory loss.
Now all of a sudden, they're in duress because they lost their job, or their son died, and like they're distraught, and your brain changes when stuff like that goes on. And just add 3 years to any memory, and you stop remembering the memory. You start remembering how you remembered the memory, right? And so it's like Inception, and then all you gotta do is pick you apart on the stand. You say one wrong thing, and there's high stakes in this trial. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of people involved. Yeah, man, there's so much that can go wrong that I don't know
what's going to happen.
I just don't know, man. I just don't know. I mean, I'm confident they'll get him on, enough, but it is what it is, man. We'll see.
Yeah.
Only the time will tell.
Yeah. Well, once again, Doug, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast and talking story with all of us and telling us your story. And it's been a blessing, man. I'm very thankful that you came on. So how can people find you, on social media or
at Doug Korenic on all platforms, on Instagram, and YouTube is the main way. And then you can go patreon.com/Doug Korenic. And yeah, man, thanks for having me on, Gavin. It's been a blast, and good luck to you, dude. I think you're doing. I watched some of your stuff. I'm super jealous. You had Incident Noi on, and you had BJ Penn, two dudes that, man, I'd love to talk to, and so it was cool to see, man. So you're making big moves, bro.
Thank you so much. And before we end off, I forgot to tell you, but we always do a Kampai at the end. So if you have
yeah, I'll get you one.
But I always do a drink for, a Kampai, a cheers to my guest, because I think, for your success in the future, for you as a dad, I continued whatever you're going to go in life, man. Kampai to you.
Kampai, dude. Thanks a lot.